In this video, we are going to wrap up the modeling by simplifying the mesh and making it game ready. So what that means is just going through and piece by piece deleting anything that we don't need. So for example, this turret here has a face in the back that's completely hidden by the mesh. So let's go ahead and delete that face. And that way we just save on triangles. But also we can move this area a little bit closer to the mesh like so, because it's not wasting triangles, but it's wasting texture space. And that's just going to be completely hidden, so we may as well make better use of that just by cutting out that area. But once we have that, we'll just look over the rest of our piece and we should be all set to go. I think the only thing I can think of to optimize here is, while we want a nice round circle here on the outside, we don't really need all of that here in the middle. So I will take one vertex here, slide that over, skip one, slide it over, and we're just going to simplify this circle on the inside. Now I will leave it as an n-gon. I don't think that'll cause any problems. We can always change it if it does. A to select everything, Control V, remove double vertices, and there we go. So that's going to be completely black anyway, as if we're just staring down a black barrel, and so that won't cause any issues. The only time n-gons can really cause problems is when they are concave, and since this is convex it should not, but I guess just to make me feel a little bit better, I will use J to connect these vertices here to turn that into quads, and then we should be set. So moving on to the next piece, let's select this one, and it has a solidify modifier, and there's not really anything we need to do to it beforehand, so let's just apply that modifier. And I think we should be all set. There's not really a whole lot we need to do there. It's a very simple piece. So moving on from that, let's check this hatch, and it looks like it has a face on the bottom, so let's delete that face. That's all we need to do there. This one has a little bit more that we need to do. So we're going to slide around and get rid of any edges or vertices that aren't contributing to changing the silhouette of the shape. And so you can see here, no matter where we slide this, it's going to look exactly the same in object mode. So we're going to slide it all the way up and go around and look for any other edges that might be like that. I don't think there are any. So let's select everything, Control V, remove double vertices. Now there is a face here at the bottom. I'll take to deselect. You can see there's a face there that we're not likely going to see. So I know that we're going to be pretty much just looking at this from the top here. However, depending on what you're using this for, there might be an in-game cinematic or something where it quickly drives over. I don't think there should be any close-up shots, but just in case, I'm going to leave this in because you still can see through it. But you know, it's probably not necessary depending on what exactly you're trying to do. Now I will apply the mirror modifier because some of this tank I'm going to want mirrored. For example, this piece here, because it's so big and it's also just like the main part of the tank. That's going to save us some work, but this top area here, I'm not going to leave mirrored because that way I can put different markings on the different sides, and so it doesn't look quite as obviously mirrored. If the entire tank was just flipped horizontally, it would look pretty obvious and there'd be a very noticeable seam. But if some pieces are mirrored and some are not, that's just going to make the effect a little bit less noticeable. So once I apply that mirror, I'm going to select this middle edge loop and just delete and edge loops. There we go. And lastly, let's take these pieces here, delete the faces in the back, delete and faces, and we don't need this face either. So let's just delete that face, and we may as well pull it down and kind of poke that through the mesh. Now I think I want to save on the texture space in here, so what I will do is snap this to those vertices, select this face, delete faces, and honestly some of these optimizations might be so small that it may not be noticeable in such a small game. I will also apply the mirror modifier here and delete that middle edge loop. But if you're working with a game with lots of objects like this, then it can make a difference. Okay, so with this done, we can kind of organize these a little bit better. I'm going to be grouping things into different objects depending on what they're going to be like in the game and what's going to be easiest to texture. So for example, all of these guys, these three here, I can hit Control J and join those together. But I'm going to leave this barrel separate. And I'm going to do that because I know that I'm going to, well, Jonathan Gonzales is going to need to animate it in Unity. And it'll be a lot easier to use just separate objects, so we can have it pull back when it shoots. It'll be a lot more efficient to animate that as an object than try to like rig it and all of that. That's just not worth the hassle, and it's also going to slow the game down by using armatures. So let's leave it as separate objects, but I can combine these two. I'll hit Control J and rename this object barrel. This I will rename turret. And it looks like we need to correct the normals here, so let's go to the object data properties, turn on auto smooth, and we should be good to go. Okay, so let's hide both of these and focus on the rest of the tank. First, for this main body, I guess I can hide the other objects as well at the moment. Tab into edit mode, and I will leave this mirrored, so we don't need to do any of that extra work when we're texturing. First, I will delete this face because it's inside the treads, so we don't need that. And now let's go ahead and slide some of these vertices around that aren't contributing. So this one can be slid right back. This whole edge loop, pretty much, if I Alt select that, deselect that vertex, and I think that's all. Then we can just slide this right towards the middle. This edge loop doesn't look like it's doing anything, so I'll delete and edge loops. This edge loop as well, let's just deselect that one. Double tap G to slide this in. There we go. This also is not helping anything, so let's delete edge loops. Similarly, this edge loop except for that vertex. So let's hold Control to select that path. Double tap G to slide that down. Now let's select everything. Control V, remove doubles. And give this one more look over just to make sure that we didn't miss anything. But it looks like we should be fine. This is one area where I do want to split up the N-gon a bit, because the only N-gons that give us troubles with UVs are the ones that are concave. And this one, it's not exactly concave, but it's kind of bordering on it. And so I will just select those two vertices, hit J to connect, and then I will turn this into a triangle here, J to connect, and then we have a quad there. So there we go, and we can also connect those vertices there, hit J to connect those, and that should be all we need to do. So with that, let's go into object mode and unhide the rest of these objects. These little details should be pretty simple. Let's just delete these bottom faces there. Delete and faces. Delete the back face of the cylinder, if there was one. Here we need to combine these two vertices, or join them with J. Connect, I guess, is the correct term there. And then box select and delete the bottom vertices that we don't even see. And we should be good. Now with this object, one thing that I want to do right off the bat is separate the treads, because I want the treads to be a different object since I'm going to apply a different texture to them and they're going to be a different material, and it's just going to be easiest for UVs and such and painting to have these as separate objects. So I'll select everything that makes up the tread, using Control to select the shortest path, Alt-Shift to select edge loops, goes around the outside, and this inside as well. And then we need to deselect anything that makes up the armor. So hold Shift and deselect these faces here. Okay, I think we got them all. Let's hide the main tank body just to make sure. Yep, we're looking good. So then I will hit P, separate by selection. And now if we hide the other objects and focus just on these treads, then we can see that we have some areas that we can optimize. We can delete this edge loop right in there. And that's probably about it. There's not a whole lot we need to do. That is looking good. Okay, so now we just need to do this last object, then we'll be all set. Okay, so we're looking for any vertices that aren't contributing to the silhouette. For example, those two. Let's hide that body again just so we can see everything clearly. Pull that in. Same with this edge loop. I will Alt select to select the whole thing because it kind of wraps around the back as well. Then double tap G, slide that in. Same there. Alt select. Double tap G, slide that over. And this might become a problem in terms of how stretched this triangle is. That can occasionally cause issues with UV unwrapping and having it be a little bit distorted. We should be okay. Let's connect both of these just to double check what it looks like when triangulated. And it should be in the acceptable levels, but we'll just keep an eye out for that as we're painting. But let's also split up this N-gon here, like so. Okay, any other flat things that aren't doing anything? This edge here. Oh, looks like we have some doubles, so let's select everything. Control V, remove double vertices. Okay. This edge, we can just slide that down. This edge we can slide over to the left. And I think, oh, this edge along the bottom as well. Let's slide that in. Okay, select everything, Control V, remove double vertices. And another thing we can do to reduce the amount of vertices is kind of poke the wheel through the tread a little bit. So if we grab this and pull it up and pull it over, we can slide some of these around. Control V, remove double vertices, and then just grab them and pull them to where, let's see, something like so. And we might, actually that will work. Just like that, so we don't have quite as many vertices, and it will look exactly the same. I don't think that vertex is doing anything. Let's slide that over. And let's do the same thing on the bottom here. Oops, let's make sure both of them are selected. Pull that in. Let's see, slide those vertices. Slide those as well. And we might be able to get away with just combining all of these. Let's try it. Let's see if we can do it, and I think we can. Okay, cool. Moving on over here, let's do the same thing. Alt-A to deselect everything, and just slide these together. I'm not using Merge at Center because I'm selecting both of these at the same time. Both sides. Okay, so pull that in to the tread like so. And in here, I think we just pulled in a couple of these. Select everything, Control V, and remove double vertices. Pull these up to make sure that there are no gaps. And there we are all set. We may as well combine some of these just to make sure that we don't have any strange N-gons, though this is also one extremely large face, where we're going to have a lot of wasted texture space in the middle there. So actually we may as well just put vertices and connect them to this other object. So I think the best way to do that is just to delete and only faces, and that's going to leave that surrounding edge loop just as it was, so we didn't lose any work there. And let's make sure that this set of edges, this inside, is lined up exactly. So I will pull this along the x-axis, hold Control, and snap that in. Oh, that did not do what I want. Let's pull that one. There we go. Oh, it's pulling along the normal. Let's switch that to global. There we go, just to make sure that it's exactly right. And then we can go through and select these vertices, hit F to fill. Fill these vertices. Fill those. Not that one. Okay. Fill those, and lastly those. And then we can select that edge that's just kind of hanging out in the middle there. That's not doing anything anymore, so let's delete and edges. And it looks like our normals are all weird, so let's select everything and Shift N to make normals consistent. There we go, so we no longer have any n-gons or wasted texture space in the middle there. Now let's also connect some of these guys here, because we just don't need quite as much vertices. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control L to select everything that's linked to this outside space, because I can't quite see this as clearly as I want. It's kind of getting in the way. So I'll hit H to hide all of that, and then hide this object. And now I can very, very clearly see that these vertices can be moved, right? That one goes over there, that one goes over there. Okay, so everything is much more simplified. Then let's select everything, Control V, remove double vertices, and just join some of these up. Actually, let's connect it like so. And now we actually have 3 quads. Perfect. All right, so Alt-A, Alt-H to unhide everything. And then let's also unhide all of our other objects. Make sure that we are looking good, and indeed we are. Lastly, I'm going to take these last objects here, the armor on the wheels, those extra details, and then I will select the tank body, hit Control J. Active object is not a mesh. Maybe I selected something else on accident. Okay, well, one trick, if for some reason you either run into a selection bug like this, likely you won't by the time this comes out, but if you have trouble selecting something, you can Alt right-click and just select exactly what it is that you want to select, or I suppose you can also use the outliner. Okay, well, anyway, let's just select all of these except the treads. So let's make sure we have the treads selected, rename those treads so we know what they are. Then these 3 objects, Control J to combine. There we go, and since they're all mirrored, then that all works beautifully. And we can rename this. Those should have been joined as well. Control J, there we go. Not sure what was up with that. But then we can Control click over here, or double click, and just rename this to tank body. And there we go, we're all set. Lastly, I think, did I already parent these? Yes, I did. So the barrel is parented to the turret, and let's parent the turret to the body. Control P, object, and keep transform. And let's also take those treads and parent them to the body as well. So now we can move this out around freely. And I don't really like those relationship lines that are in the viewport. Sometimes they're helpful, but not at the moment. I can tell what's linked to what, so in the overlays, let's turn off relationship lines, and that way our viewport is nice and clean. So with that, we have finished modeling, and in the next video, we'll look at UV unwrapping.